Hey guys, Mike here up in the attic. I was off today, so I figured I'd do a little bit more work on the Carf Spitfire. And today I did my least favorite job of all, centering the motor on the firewall to get just the right position on the cowl with not too much of a gap, without the thing being offline. And I think I've gotten it pretty close. Why am I way up on the roof? You see the roof here behind us. Because I'm on a ladder. So I saw this method of centering the engine on the firewall a couple years ago. I never tried it, and I didn't really need to do it with the Nosen Mustang. For some reason, it went pretty easily. It was just, I was using the, hang on a second, a Rimfire 65 on that, which is heavy, but not real heavy. And I was able to put it on the firewall pretty quickly, pretty easily. This one, though, I really wanted to get it right the first time and without, scratching my head too much. So let me move around to the side. So as I said, this isn't my idea. I saw this online a couple years ago in one of the Giant Scale forums, and it really, really, really does work pretty easily. I was lucky with this model in that you can see, I'm going to walk in there, the tool shelf on the ladder here is really just in the right spot to catch right here. Ooh, here and here. There's an opening, and the ladder shelf just went right in there. I padded it a little bit just to protect the fiberglass. These Carf models have really, really very like eggshell thin fiberglass, so it's a tiny bit fragile, and I don't want to damage it. So let me zoom out. So I lined it up. I pulled off the rudder and elevator. Carf Spitfires have a pin, a rod rather, long rod, about 2.5 millimeters, that slides through the hinge points. And it's removable. So if you ever have to work on the tail section, it makes it a lot easier than trying to break out pin hinges or hinges that have been glued in. So you just pull them out. It's kind of simple. Anyway, I was able to stand it up. It's not quite plumb, but I didn't need it to be because I'm not lining the prop up or the firewall up based on the position of the floor. It's really to a datum line. And I'm using this panel line here as my not imaginary datum line, I guess, relative datum line. But when I put the prop on the back of on the back plate of the spinner, I got a little bit of down thrust, so that seems to be built in. Now I wanted to set it up with 0 right thrust because I used the rudder quite a bit, and I didn't really think I would need it too much once I trimmed it out. I know Adam likes to fly with 0-0, but this had right thrust built into not the firewall, strangely, but in the cowling is what I noticed, because the cowling's lined up pretty nicely. And when I set everything up the way I wanted, so I had I got the distance between the firewall and the back plate of the spinner and propeller and set that up. And I put the prop on and I looked at it, and I had the few degrees of down, which I like. And then I put the cowl on, and lo and behold, it looks to be, now somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like there's a few degrees of right thrust built into the front of the cowling. So the front face of the cowling on the right side, it's a few millimeters down from the left side. I'm going to say they did it on purpose. So anyway, I had to go in and just stick a couple of washers behind the mounting plate. And I'm going to show you in a second what I do to make these mountings go much, much easier. I don't mount the engine standoffs directly to the firewall. That's kind of a pain in the ass to get right, especially with drilling holes to make everything go through. And so I create, with all of these now, it's something I've been doing even with some of the smaller ones, false firewall. So the entire assembly, and remember now, that's the Stinger 170. I switched from the Rimfire 65 that's sitting here. I switched from the Rimfire 65 to the Stinger 170. I can turn a little bit of a bigger prop. I can run bigger cells, and instead of putting lead in there, and I think it's going to give me a good bit of performance. I've changed up the prop a little bit, but it's gonna be like a bat out of hell, I think. So let me show you what I did. So anyway, back to this false firewall. Here's the false firewall I was talking about. Some of you may ask me, what is that bag doing there? I put plastic bags over all of my my valuable electric motors now, the ones that I actually care about, the bigger ones especially, they have really powerful magnets, so they pick up crap on the bench all the time. This is going to make, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9 kilowatts of power, so it's going to have a lot of juice. I'd hate for a metal shaving or a little tiny washer to have gotten in there and gum it all up at a really bad time, because it'll probably catch on fire. That's a lot of energy. And I don't want to ruin a motor. I'll take it off for a second so you can see. But anyway, if you have these motors, it makes sense to wrap them in a plastic bag while you're working on them. Hold on a sec. There we go. The bag's out of the way. Just as an aside, when I was putting this together, you can see there's a stack of washers here because I didn't have the right size. These are couplers, threaded rod couplers that I think they use in fence construction. I use them as standoffs. I couldn't get the size I needed, so I was using washers, these 1/4 washers down here. And one of them was missing. I didn't know where the hell it was. And it was stuck to the side of the plastic bag, stuck to the motor. So a good idea to wrap your motors. All right, so back to this. So you can see here that this assembly has standoffs to create the actual structural part of the belt drive. And then you have to stand it off to your distance here. I thought it would be really impossibly hard, and I would eventually screw up the alignment after taking a lot of time to line it up, if I had to drill through the firewall and mount this directly. So about a year or so ago, I decided to try something different, and I started making firewall. This is a 8mm, 1/4 inch aircraft ply firewall. This is actually 2 pieces of 1/8 or 4mm bonded together. I didn't have any 1/4 inch on hand, and I didn't feel like waiting for an order. But anyway, I mount the assembly to this firewall, and this firewall is much easier to maneuver around on a false firewall, rather. It's much easier to maneuver around on the fixed firewall. And once I have the thing together and I'm moving, I can move this around until I get the right centering, and then I just tape it down and then fine tune it from there. So let's talk about that fine tuning. You can just see 2 washers there, and there's another 2 here. You just barely see them. That's because the cowling has a couple of degrees of right thrust, but the firewall is at 0. And I did not want to trim the back of the cowling because the cowling has rivet lines and panel lines, and I knew that it would drive me crazy, so I figured I would just do this. So now it's going to be much, much easier to mount this. And one of the bonuses here is that a lot of guys would put just say another washer or 2 here and here, but that puts the mounting cockeyed, right? So this side is square, and then this side would be off 2 or 3 degrees. So that puts pressure on these lugs. Doing it this way, the pressure goes through the wood, and wood is, a composite. Wood is nature's composite. It's a little more flexible, and it's going to mount wherever I put it without undue stress. It'll absorb a lot of stress. So anyway, that's my method. So I actually had 2 pieces of Gorilla Tape on here and 1 up top here when I did my alignment. And then once I had everything together, I came back through and I put all this other tape in. Now, how's it going to mount up? I'm going to wind up drilling holes. Let me peel off this corner piece here. That's a 1/4 inch hole. So I have 1/4 bolts and nylock nuts and bolts and washers. So I will drill this through the firewall and mount that. And I'll do each one individually until I have everything mounted. Now you can see here that this rectangular plate that I created is larger, over large. So there's a hole under here, but it's kind of a hole to nowhere. There's, a big gap under here. So I'm going to wind up having to reposition that. I'll drill another hole up here and another hole here, and then 1 up at the top. So this firewall will be held in place with 5 1/4 bolts and nylock nuts. And really, I'll call it done at that point. Then I just have to make my openings for the wires. The ESC is going to go out here. I don't remember which one I'm going to use on this. I don't know if I'm going to use the Scorpion that came with it or switch to I have an Spin 220, a Jetty Spin 220. Quality stuff. I'm trying to stick to just, really good equipment on here. I am going to change some things here while we're talking about this. These are just some 1/4 20 cabinet screws that I had laying around for the length. These will get switched out for, like grade 5 or something. And then there's not lock nuts, T-nuts on the back, so this sits flat. So anyway, that's my method. I know it's a long video, and I'm hoping I didn't bore the hell out of you guys. I kind of rambled on a bit, but this is getting close to flight. I'm hoping that if we have a nice day in sometime in December, that I might get to fly this. I fly it. I still belong to the Jersey Coast Sport Flyers. That's my primary club, but I joined the New Jersey Pine Barrens. And they have a field near me because I'm way out in Egg Harbor, Little Egg Harbor. I live way out on the bay, and I'm kind of far from the field, where the guys are. But there's a field near me that it's this awesome, Forestry Service field. It's massive. It's 3 enormous, 3,000 or 4,000 foot runways. It's meant for full scale aircraft, and I can fly there. It's amazing. It's only about 25 minutes from me. But I can fly these big planes out there without, worrying about doing something dumb and putting it into a neighborhood. Not that that's the plan, but, I'm new to giant scale, so I'm taking baby steps. I'm building cool stuff, but I'm taking baby steps with the flying. Anyway, all right, guys, take it easy. I hope this helps a couple of guys do something that I know I don't like doing, so I can't imagine everybody else likes it. This is a big pain in the butt job, but here we go. Take it easy, fellas.